When did they add that?
I find it sort of unsettling.
Yeah, I feel like
This meeting is being recorded.
it seems like a legal thing.
Well, I mean, yeah,
But I
it
mean, like
might.
I feel like I'm in a legal environment, I guess, right? Like I'm on record.
You are.
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
you're accountable to your words now.
You have some news to share?
Yeah, I got my jab. I got my we as we you they don't call it the jab over there, do they?
It's actually called the jab there.
Yeah, yeah, the Brits call it the jab.
I mean, I've heard some
Just
people call it that.
yeah, British as fuck. It's a really British thing to say, I feel like. Get your jab. Yeah, by the way, all of my British voices are like Dickensian chimney sweeps or like a fruity lord from an Oscar Wilde play. Like that's the only two kinds of British I can do.
And that's
But
really the only two type of British there are, right?
yeah, I mean it's accurate. The
Yeah.
Brits would disagree with me, but they're wrong. They don't have the power of self-reflection. So
This is
who
a
are
lame
they?
joke. Or go ahead. Go ahead.
Who are they to tell me? No, go on.
I was, I was just gonna say this is a lame joke, but have you ever seen someone wearing a bowler hat, or could you buy one? Like, is there a place that you would go buy that?
Yeah.
Savile.
Oh, there's definitely. Well, you go to like Savile Row or
Yeah,
something.
yeah.
What the thing you don't see the bowler hats, unfortunately. It's very disappointing, but you do see guys with the like the very like stylish umbrella who like walk with it like they're Mycroft homes. You know,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
like it's like a like they're kind of twirling it like a dandy. Um, that's a that's a real thing that you see if you're in like the financial district.
I know one thing that we've joked about is British socks, and I think you said it best is that they're an outfit onto their own.
Yeah. I don't get it.
It's a
Yeah,
weird trend, yeah.
it's like very classic, like again, Savile Row suits and then just like very garish socks. I guess it's like what was it? George H.W. was known for his silly socks and nothing else. Uh he, he most famously known for his silly socks.
I remember like people always got upset that Putin, like when I was in high school, for some reason my high school like history teachers would say like, oh yeah, Putin, he's like ex-KJB, or KGB. Um
KJB,
KJ, yeah, KGB.
XK pop.
Yeah. And it's like, yeah, George Bush was the former head of the CIA.
Yeah, and definitely helped kill Kennedy.
Yeah, yeah. But wait.
Yeah.
So can we just talk about British socks a little bit more?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
What are
So wait,
your what are your thoughts?
Was HW doing it after that fashion? Which could you just explain the fashion since you live there, since you're English?
Sure. Also, how dare you? Well, yeah, yeah. It's like the classic like British cut suit, you know, which are better cuts than American suits. American suits are baggy and sad, but they've caught up. If you're, yeah, I suppose it's not in vogue anymore to have like the sort of boxy Mad Men look. But yeah, it's like the classic like either pinstripe or three-piece suit, obviously with the bottom button of the vest undone, Oxford style. And then yeah, so it'll be like a very conservative suit, but then having like some ridiculous kind of flamboyantly colored socks. Sometimes they will be the Union Jack flag or something like that, but it's just like all of their repressed emotion goes into the color of their socks and nowhere else.
Yeah, they don't really match, right?
No, like purposefully don't match.
Like a
They're
clash.
yeah. I don't get it. I don't like it. I'm not one for flamboyant socks.
You're not feeling too great after this first job.
You know, I'm okay. I'm okay. I slept all fucking day. I thought I would be fine because I'm pretty sure I had COVID a few months ago. I didn't have any symptoms or whatever, but my girlfriend had it, and I was, you know, around her the whole time. So I imagine I had it just asymptomatic. But yeah, I got it yesterday at one of those like contagion tents outside of a hospital, and it was fine. It does, I don't know about you, but it does feel like they're injecting syrup into your arm.
Um, yeah,
Like it
yeah. Now
felt
that you
like
say it,
if
yeah.
yeah, it felt like strong. It was like you remember the which Batman movie? I think it was one of the Maybe it was the one with George Clooney where they make Bane and they inject like the green serum into him.
Oh, right.
I
Yeah.
felt I felt like it was that. But yeah, anyway, I was fine. They make you stay there for like 15 minutes to make sure you're okay. And I was bored and some poor bastard sitting next to me like fainted.
Oh,
Yeah. Like, I was just there like kind of scrolling on my phone. I was like, ugh, when do I get I want a cigarette, you know? I want to go, I want to leave. And then this guy just started kind of like getting woozy and someone ran up to him and then they were ready for it. They immediately like brought out a cot and brought out some dividers and then were like lifting his feet up off the floor and stuff.
God, that gives
But
me confidence. Jeez.
yeah, but I was fine. I'm a big, strong boy, so I didn't have any issues. I slept all day today though, and my arm does feel like it was hit by a fucking baseball bat. Other than that, I'm fine.
Can we get a producer comment? Joe, what were we just asking Ben? Did your arm hurt after the first one?
My arm did hurt the second day after the first shot. The second shot, I didn't have too much pain though.
Yeah, mine. Oh wait, sorry, Joe. This is what I meant to ask you. Where did you get yours?
At a Walgreens on the lower, or I guess on the lower west side.
I kind of wish I would have had that like war-like experience because I know they had the Javits Center open, and that was like everyone's queued up, and it's like kind of on a constant stream. But mine, I think I told you this. Mine was in like a CVS really near us, and there was like right next to the Peanuts and Pretzels, and like Maroon 5 was playing and shit, and it was weird.
Yeah, mine was like a whole thing because I got it outside of in like a giant makeshift tent outside of a hospital near where I live. So yeah, it was a huge queue. You had a bunch of warning from nurses who I couldn't understand a word they were saying. I just said yes to everything. I mean, I may have ignored some important information that I shouldn't have, but you know what I was disappointed about was I didn't get a lolly. I wanted a lolly.
Yeah,
Did you get your sticker?
Yeah, I got a sticker, but stickers are boring without a lolly. I want candy.
You know what? Do they have incentives in the UK to get vaccinated? Because the big one in New York, at least, is free Shake Shack French fries.
Oh yeah, I remember hearing about that. So that's so weird. No, they don't have any incentive over here. It's just, that you're not going to die. Or the
I think in Ohio you can win. Someone might have won $1 million at a lot.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, what an insane Midwestern thing to have. Like
money.
I find that very funny that it's like these because ostensibly we're doing this to convince people who are skeptical of the vaccine or whatever, and it's like okay, yeah, you might be worried that Bill Gates is putting a microchip in your arm or that you're going to drop dead in 6 months because this is actually secretly the government culling the population, but you might win $1 million.
I would take that. I would take the gamble.
Yeah, me too. Actually, yeah, I want $1 million.
It's insane how many people are actually like scared of that because like even is refusing to get it right now and like made come home and hold a magnet to her arm after she got it because she was convinced they were putting chips in us. I was like, do you know how ridiculous that sounds? And she's like,
that's
no,
hilarious.
I'm not getting it. I was like,
I do want to know, is that possible?
She wanted held a magnet?
Yeah.
Sounds like she doesn't understand how technology works.
Well, that's what I'm asking. Like, have any of these people shown how that technology works?
I think they get their information from like influencers and people who have no like background and have no idea what they're talking about. They've just developed these like cult followings, and now that something has arrived that they need, the people are coming to them for advice, and they don't have the like knowledge to actually give it. They're just saying what they feel, and all these people are believing it, taking it as true.
Is the magnet to scramble the chip, or is the magnet to suck it out of their body?
Please let it be the latter.
I hope it's that. I hope it's like
What if it's like really long,
I think the magnet was just supposed to stick to the arm to prove that it was in there.
Oh,
it's like okay, yeah, that's it. I mean,
it's like the power of a refrigerator.
Yeah, like you're gonna walk past like your refrigerator and all the magnets are just gonna like and like
Starts to move on the floor,
We're all Does that mean that the people who get the jab would like magnetize and suck to each other? Like you're going to be standing on the train platform and your arm just like connects to another guy's because you've got the magnetic field?
Or pushes you away because it's like...
Yeah, or pushes you away. You're kind of always subtly turning left just because the magnetism in your arm is forcing it. I've never heard the magnet one. That's a special kind of stupid. I like that.
This is way off topic, but I was just thinking about it this weekend. Wanted to get your opinion. One, does the UK have peanut butter? Could you buy peanut butter there?
Yeah, yes, Daniel, we have peanut butter.
Do you?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I guess this gets to my question.
There's peanut butter everywhere.
I don't think you can get it in France. Something tells me that.
I'm sure you get it in France.
At a markup, but...
At a markup? It's peanuts. It's not...
My question is, what kind do you get? What kind do you get? Do you get the stir-in is what I want to know.
What's the stir-in?
It's like the real oily kind, and you have to like...
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, you have that kind. I mean, if you go to like a nicer place and you get like the all natural organic or whatever, you'd have that. I mean, I don't think you have like Jif or stuff like that, the stuff we grew up with, that probably has, you know, a ton of sugar in it and stuff. But yes, we have peanut butter.
I asked because yeah, I would get like Jif and stuff like that. I'm not too much of a snob with my peanut butter, though I do love it. And I got the stir-in recently. And it fucking sucks, man. I mean, I've had stir-in before, but it is such a mess.
Yeah, stir-in does suck. I agree. It's really annoying. I don't like the separation of oils and stuff like that. I know it's better for you.
Is it? I mean, in the sense of like what?
I mean, I guess, and that it's like, you know, if something naturally congeals and doesn't separate, that's probably, you know, it means there's just a lot of like added preservatives or something in it.
Yeah.
You know what I hate when I remember, I think it was my mom told me years ago, it was like, oh, you need to keep your peanut butter in the fridge, which, you know, is not like mind-blowing knowledge. But she said, yeah, you have to keep your peanut butter in the fridge. And I was like, oh yeah, of course, that makes sense. I did it. And I did it for like one time. And I was like, this sucks. Like, you ever try to put cold peanut butter onto toast?
Yeah, it's kind of like, it's like ice cream.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very counterproductive.
Mm-hmm.
You need smooth peanut butter, and then you got to like warm it up or something. It's.
You know what I do like though? Is Reese's peanut butter cups in the refrigerator.
Oh well, yeah, of course.
Yeah, different game.
Yeah, who could? That's
not even peanut butter, really. I don't think.
Not even close. This is Villain for All Seasons penultimate episode. I'm Ben.
Dan.
Welcome. So, what are we talking about? What's going on? I've been asleep all day. I'm unprepared.
Understandable. I just want to introduce who we are speaking to this week. Clarem Gonzalez. We were going to interview her a few weeks ago, but we ended up getting Norm Finkelstein. Just a conversation about Israel-Palestine. If you haven't watched that episode, please do. It is currently our most watched episode, if I don't say so myself. But we are going to be talking to Clarem Gonzalez about a lot of the protests that were happening in Colombia a few weeks ago, which seems like a century ago now, but it's a good conversation. She gives a lot of background that about Colombia as a country that I found pretty fascinating. How did you feel about it?
Yeah, it was good. I think it's always good, you know, talking to journalists or talking to experts is one thing, and it's great and important, but it's also nice to just talk to people who have the lived experience, who can kind of give you a cultural understanding of the place that you're speaking about. Which I enjoyed from this. I did want to mention, it was kind of, I don't know if we'll need to cut this, but I did think it was funny that when we were waiting for Clarem to get on, I just like a minute before she got on, I asked Dan, I was like, wait a second, do we have an idea of what her politics are on this situation? And Dan did not. We're like, oh fuck, like, are we about to talk to like some upper class bourgeoisie pro Ivan Duque like rich person? And we were like, oh shit, I don't really know what I mean, well, we still would have had the conversation, but luckily that wasn't the case.
No, yeah, it wasn't the case. And just for context, Ivan Duque is the president who, as you'll hear in the conversation, a bit negligent dealing with a lot of the social problems that led to the protests. So yeah, stay tuned for that. It's good. I wanted to talk about this plane downing that happened over Belarus.
Yes. Yeah, hot news of the week.
Yeah, I think this happened, I don't remember, maybe it was Sunday night. I think news broke that the corrupt president of Belarus, I think his first name is Alexander, but
Alexander Lukashenko
called for a plane to be down because it had, his suspicion was that it had a prominent journalist that was anti the Lukashenko regime. They arrested the journalist, and this caused, understandably, a big uproar in the West. It was a Ryanair flight.
There are serious things to talk about, but I think when I first heard of it, it's just kind of funny to put yourself in the shoes of one of the poor bastards who was on that plane. I believe the plane was coming from Athens. So for anybody who hasn't had the misfortune of flying Ryanair is an Irish budget.
I think you roll your R when you say that.
You
should roll your R when you say.
I can't roll my R's.
Yeah, me neither.
Yeah. Ryanair is an Irish budget airline, and it is the worst. It is terrible. Like it's dirt cheap, but it's like one of those ones where you'll get a flight for like $20, and then there's like $200 in add-on hidden fees. Like once you get to the airport, totally uncomfortable. It's terrible, right? And it's just like, can you imagine? You've just finished, like a vacation in Greece. You're flying home on the worst flight ever. And then all of a sudden, a MiG-29, which for any of you who have ever played Command and Conquer Red Alert will know, is a Soviet-era fighter jet that I believe was first commissioned in like 1982. So like a 40-year-old fighter jet. They told the pilots that there might be like a bomb on the plane or something, right?
Suspicion of an explosive.
Yeah. And then also, flew up a MiG to escort them down. Right. Nothing shady there. Yeah. So imagine that. And it was like, okay, yeah, you're not getting to your intended destination. You're landing in Minsk.
Mm-hmm.
And then the fucking Belarusian government comes and pulls some like 26-year-old off. I'm just saying, terrible vacation. That would ruin my Greek vacation.
Yeah, right after COVID too.
Yeah, it's the first time you got to go anywhere with your stupid family, and you finally get to enjoy yourself, and you just want to have a nice, relaxing flight back, but you can't because you're on Ryanair, and
yeah, that is tough. I think there was a lot of like declarations that came out about this from the usual suspects. Everybody's like, I think Boris Johnson was like, it's an affront to justice everywhere or something like that.
Oh God, yeah. Pause for that. Do you still have that tweet that he put up
about press freedom or whatever?
Oh yeah. So yeah, Dan sent me this. It was a tweet from Boris Johnson. The video of Roman Prostovich makes for deeply distressing viewing. As a journalist and a passionate believer in the freedom of speech, I call for his immediate release. Belarus's actions will have consequences. I just really like this tweet because the words "as a journalist" coming from Boris Johnson are about as good as it gets. For anybody who doesn't know, he did actually start his career in big finger quotes journalism. He was like an opinion columnist for The Sun, I believe. And then he's had like 2 major journalism jobs. Both of them he got fired from for just like flagrant lies in his reporting. But he was basically like an opinion columnist. And yeah, for anybody who doesn't know much about him, Boris Johnson is just the greatest definition of failing upwards. So, had some shitty opinion column, got fired for libel, got a better journalism job. I think he was a correspondent in Brussels where he just made it his business to talk shit about the EU, and that's all.
Yeah.
Got fired from that for printing more bullshit. And now he's prime minister.
It's a good life.
But yeah, I thought that was funny. I mean, yeah, all of the obviously this is terrible. It's a really fucked up situation. It's horrible that it happened.
Mhm.
It's, you know, not surprising that a despot like Lukashenko would do this. He's been in power for like 40 years. You know, very repressive government, very thin-skinned man. So obviously it's terrible, but the pearl clutching that has come from the Western media about this has been really outstanding. And Glenn Greenwald wrote a really good article on his Substack talking about this, just basically making the very important prescient point that this same exact thing, if not worse, some could argue much worse, happened back in 2013 when the manhunt for Edward Snowden was on and the downing of Evo Morales's plane happened in, I think it was Austria.
President of Bolivia at the time.
Yeah. No, but he was downed in Austria, I mean.
Yeah, he was downed in Austria.
Yeah.
And this is something that we talked about in the pre-show, but again, that he was denied the airspace to travel. And if he had proceeded to travel, what would have happened?
Yeah. Well, that's also
I guess what I'm saying is like the implicit threat is like we would shoot you down, right?
That's absolutely what the threat. Well, the same with this. It was like there might be a bomb on the plane, but oh, also here's our MiG fighter jet. Like what? That's only saying one thing.
Yeah, exactly.
That's, you know, there's not really like yeah, it's like there's a bomb and we've got our bomb squad on this MiG fighter jet who are gonna hop over onto yours and defuse it. Like that's not what that means. They were threatening to shoot it down.
And I just think it's interesting how the media does cover this in two ways. So I just want to read a little bit of each. Ben, can you see one of these articles? So it says, for the headline, Belarus forces down plane to seize dissident. Semicolon, Europe sees state hijacking, in quotes. The dissident Roman Prostovich co-founded a Telegram channel that is a popular opposition outlet in Belarus. The plane was flying from Athens to Lithuania when it was forced down. Just read a little bit of this.
Yeah.
So the strongman president of Belarus sent a fighter jet to intercept a European airliner traveling through the country's airspace on Sunday and ordered the plane to land in the capital, Minsk, where a prominent opposition journalist aboard was then seized, provoking international outrage. The stunning gambit by Alexander Lukashenko, a brutal and erratic leader who has clung to power despite huge protest against his government last year, was condemned by European officials, compared it to a hijacking. It was underscored that with the support of President Putin of Russia, Lukashenko is prepared to go to extraordinary lengths to repress dissent. The Ryanair flight from Athens to Vilnius, Lithuania, carrying
Vilnius? I don't know.
Yeah, Lithuania, carrying some 170 passengers, among them the journalist Roman Prostovich, and people vacationing in Athens, was flying over Belarus when Belarusian air traffic controllers notified its pilots potential security threat and directed the plane to divert over Minsk, the Ireland-based airline said in a statement. Here's where it gets good, I think. Mr. Lukashenko, often referred to as Europe's last dictator, personally ordered MiG fighter jets to escort the Ryanair plane to the Minsk airport after a bomb threat, his press service said. According to the statement, Lukashenko gave an unequivocal order to make the plane do a U-turn and land. After about 7 hours on the ground, the Ryanair Boeing took off from Vilnius from Minsk with its passenger and crew and landed safely at its destination 35 minutes later. But not Mr. Protsevich. During the plane stop in Minsk, he was arrested, the country's interior minister said in a statement that was later deleted from its official Telegram channel. After the plane was diverted to Minsk, Protsevich turned to fellow passengers and said he was facing the death penalty. One passenger, Monica Skimkini, told Agence France Presse. He was not screaming, but it was clear that he was very much afraid, another passenger, Edvina Stemsa, recalled. According to AFP, it looked like if the window had been open, he would have jumped out of it. No bomb was found on board, the country's law enforcement authority said. They had opened a case into the face of the false bomb threat. So it talks a little bit more about Protsevich here and how he, opposition leader, and really sells him as someone who's been against the Lukashenko government. And then it gives a little bit more context about Lukashenko and how he's been repressive. But I just wanted to compare this, and we also see people like, I'll just say this and then we can go away. It says the Greek Foreign Ministry called it a state hijacking. The Prime Minister of Mateusz Morawiecki in Poland called it an act of state terrorism. Germany's Foreign Minister Heiko Maas said that such an act cannot remain without clear consequences. His French counterpart, Jean-Louis Le Drian, called for a firm and unified response from the EU. And Anthony Blinken said, we strongly condemn the Lukashenko regime's brazen and shocking act to divert a commercial flight and arrest a journalist. We will demand an international investigation and are coordinating with our partners on next steps. And I just want to compare this with the article that was written about Morales when his plane was downed.
Yeah. All right, so this is from July 2013 from the New York Times. Headline reads, barring of Bolivian plane infuriates Latin America as Snowden case widens. And we have from Caracas, Venezuela, the geopolitical storm churned up by Edward J. Snowden, the fugitive American intelligence contractor, continued to spread on Wednesday as Latin American leaders roundly condemned the refusal to let Bolivia's president fly over several European nations, rallying to his side after Bolivian officials said the president's plane had been thwarted because of suspicions that Mr. Snowden was on board. Calling it a grave offense to their entire region, Latin American officials said they would hold an emergency meeting of a union of South American nations on Thursday. President Cristina Fernandez de Kirchner of Argentina said the episode had vestiges of a colonialism that we thought was completely overcome, describing it as a humiliating act that affected all of South America. President Rafael Correa of Ecuador said in a post on Twitter that the situation was, quote, extremely serious and called it an affront to all America, referring to Latin America. Thank you, New York Times. Yeah, I mean, I think we get like the general thing from it. I think it's very telling that in the Snowden piece, they're really only talking about how Latin American governments are pissed off about this and kind of completely skirting the fact that they downed a fucking plane in Europe.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Scroll down until you find where it says the latest burst of outrage. Look how long it takes for you to get down so they explain what is happening.
Sure. Right, so it goes on for about 10 more paragraphs, and then the latest burst of outrage came in response to the diversion of a plane carrying Bolivia's president, Evo Morales. As he was flying home from Moscow on Tuesday, he had attended a meeting of nations that export natural gas and had told Russian television that he was open to giving asylum to Mr. Snowden. Mr. Snowden has been holed up in the Sheremetyevo airport in Moscow for more than a week, hoping to receive a positive response to the asylum requests he has made to several countries. And Mr. Morales' remark may have set off suspicion that he was bringing the fugitive aboard.
So,
yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, like, it took, 14 to 15 paragraphs to actually get down to explain what happened?
Yeah.
I mean, again, like, if the profession of journalism is distilling information, you have to wonder, I mean, it's clearly whataboutism and something that, excuse me, let me start this over. If journalism is the distilling of information, there's a clear choice made of how that information is distilled, right? In what cadence it is distilled.
Yeah, well, and exactly to your point, the fact that all these heads of state in Latin America were pissed about it is not the main story. The story is that a head of state's plane was forcibly grounded because they thought he may be, in their terms, harboring a fugitive, or as, which I also don't think that's how it would happen, but maybe that's neither here nor there. Like, really, is like, is he gonna get a personal flight with Evo Morales? That's crazy. Maybe he would. Evo's just a really down-to-earth guy. He's like, yeah, you can hitch a ride with me. But yeah, it's like someone seeking political asylum, and like, for anybody who's not clear on this, like a president's plane is basically, oh yeah, sorry. For anybody who's not clear on this, a president's plane is basically a flying embassy. Like,
yeah,
that is Bolivian territory.
Notice that they used fugitive, not whistleblower, in that first graph.
Oh, of course. Well, I mean, this was right back when it happened, back when, Barack Obama had just called him. I think that was something that was so, I remember when this was happening and it was so fucking crazy because, just before this, I think was when Obama had said, we're not that concerned with the acts of a 29-year-old hacker.
Yeah.
Remember when he called him a hacker?
Mm-hmm.
And clearly they were, because a few days later they down Evo's plane.
They canceled his passport too. I can't remember if that was right. That must have been right around then. Because I remember when he was in the airport.
Yeah, it was as soon as he got to Moscow. At the time, he was waiting on his asylum to go through in Russia because he couldn't leave the airport and he couldn't fly anywhere else because his passports had been canceled.
Yeah.
But yeah, basically the pearl clutching from Western states about Belarus's actions, which again are fucked up. Like it's a really fucked up situation.
Yeah.
But to act like it's like completely beyond the pale is really disingenuous. And I think it was one of the something you were showing me that I think it was a New York Times article. I don't know if it was the one you were reading from, but someone was like, some people would compare this to downing of Evo Morales' plane. This is whataboutism.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, well, so the fuck what? Doesn't make it not a salient argument.
It's from an opinion piece, so from an op-ed, so there is that, but the op-eds do say something about the reflection of the paper. The opinion bit is a state-sponsored skyjacking can't go unanswered. Mr. Lukashenko was unfazed and on Monday went on with business as usual, signaling laws furthering crackdown on dissent. Russia promptly came to Mr. Lukashenko's defense, with a foreign ministry spokeswoman recalling that several years ago, the United States pressured a plane carrying Bolivia's president, Evo Morales, to make an unscheduled stop in Vienna after European countries refused it permission to fly over their territory on suspicion that the whistleblower Edward Snowden was on board. That's whataboutism, of course, but it is worth revisiting the facts. In 2013, Mr. Snowden had made his way to Moscow, where Mr. Morales went to attend an international conference. On the suspicion that Mr. Morales would grant Mr. Snowden asylum and had taken him aboard his flight home, the president's plane was barred from flying over some European countries and was forced to land in Austria. When officials determined that Mr. Snowden was not on board, Mr. Morales was allowed to continue. The outcry, especially from Latin America, was fierce. Much of the criticism leveled at the Obama administration at the time was warranted. But there is a difference between denying overflight to a plane and forcing a commercial jetliner to land over a false alarm, accompanying a warplane. Notice how they just write off the.
Yeah, I think that's the important part. Like, there's a difference.
After we brought down his flight and searched it, he wasn't on there. I mean, again, they're both bad. I don't know why we can't condemn both. And I mean, that's the whole point with whataboutism, or like how it was hurled is like, oh, you're pointing that out, and that means you don't sufficiently care about this crime committed by someone who is a declared official enemy of the United States.
That's a very empire argument of like that somehow Belarus's actions were worse because they used this sort of false alarm and that sort of thing, because they don't have like the big enough stick to swing where they could just go, nope, ground it. They have to, find kind of like a shadier way to go about it. Whereas America and the EU can just say, nope, you can't fly here. But it's like the result is the exact same thing. So I don't know what the fuck they're talking about with one being worse than the other. It's like, yeah, it's like it's a little fucking tin pot dictatorship, basically. Yeah, it's backed by Russia, but like, if you're going to do it, of course, that's the way they would do it, with some sort of false pretense of a bomb, because they couldn't say, this is the glorious kingdom of Belarus. I know they don't call it that, but this is the glorious kingdom of Belarus, and you must ground this plane. And people would be like, oh shit, Belarus says so. Like, it doesn't work that way. So this idea that it's such a like empire thinking of like, well, we did it in like a nicer way. It's like, no, you didn't. Like, it's the exact same result. It doesn't make any difference, like whether or not they would it change effectively the actions of the Obama administration at all if they had been like, Mr. Morales, we believe there might be a bomb on your plane. Oops, Also, can we poke around in there just to check? It's like you were saying, like what would happen had they not landed? They would have gotten fucking shot down. The only difference would have been that they would have gotten shot down by a plane that wasn't fucking 40 years old, I guess.
Yeah. No, I think it's all a good point. And again, just to reiterate that whataboutism has really destroyed this idea that you can chew gum and walk at the same time.
Yeah, well, it's just one of those, this was a bigger conversation that started, in the last 5 years with the Trump administration that people start, like I think John Oliver did a whole thing on, shout out John Oliver again, but did a whole thing on whataboutism. Just anytime Trump said anything or did anything and someone had the audacity to go, well, what's different about this from previous administrations? They'd be like, you asshole, this is whataboutism. And it was like, well, just because it's, maybe it is. That doesn't mean it's not a good argument. And it doesn't mean it's not true.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I think we mentioned this in the pre-show, but something that's always stuck with me is the Chomsky warranted and unwarranted victims. And I mean, clearly in this case, it's like, Alexei Navalny, you get Protsevich, and they are worthy victims. But you think of people like Julian Assange, or you think of people like Edward Snowden, they're unworthy victims. They don't really, I mean, that's a poor example of what he was actually getting at. The real example is that a lot of the unworthy victims go nameless, where the so-called worthy victims are people like Alexei Navalny.
Well, yeah, and again, Lukashenko is a fucking dictator. I mean, the guy doesn't allow theater, like, which one of the more benign art forms that no one cares about. So it's again
we have to talk about that.
Again, with walking and chewing gum at the same time, you can say that he's a horrible despot and also recognize the bigger picture. But obviously, I think it's Protasevich, by the way. I'm not up on my Belarus.
You did pronounce that airport pretty well.
Oh yeah, Sheremetyevo. That took a while.
Yeah.
It was only because I had like 9 weeks to figure it out while Edward Snowden was there back in 2013. It's like, how the fuck do you say this?
Or the funding of the show helps too. So
yeah, but yeah, it all goes back to this is as big of a deal as, again, not saying it isn't a big deal, but it is this extraordinary deal that is beyond the pale of anything you'd see in the West, specifically because it is a country connected to Russia. And it goes back to this Cold War thinking that everybody in the West wants to have still. And, had this guy been a dissident of a friendly country, would we have this kind of press coverage? I don't think so.
I wanted to talk about one more article that I read about Biden. This is how I woke up this morning. It just says a lot in a few paragraphs. So let me pull this up. Biden's fossil fuel moves clash with pledges on climate change. Washington. Despite President Biden's pledge to aggressively cut the pollution from fossil fuels that is driving climate change, his administration has quietly taken actions this month that will guarantee the drilling and burning of oil and gas for decades to come. The clash between Mr. Biden's pledges and some of his recent decisions illustrate the political, technical, and legal difficulties of disentangling the country from oil, gas, and coal that have underpinned its economy for more than a century. On Wednesday, the Biden administration defended in federal court the Willow Project, a huge oil drilling operation proposed on Alaska's North Slope that was approved by the Trump administration and is being fought by environmentalists. Weeks earlier, it backed former President Donald Trump's decision to grant oil and gas leases on federal land in Wyoming. By the way, the it there being the Biden administration. Also, this month, the Biden administration, declined to act when it had an opportunity to stop crude oil from continuing to flow through the bitterly contested 2,700-mile Dakota Access Pipeline, which lacks a federal permit. These three decisions suggested the jagged road that Mr. Biden is following as he tries to balance his climate agenda against practical and political pressures. And the rest of this goes on to say how hard it is now, how hard Joe has it in office. And I wanted to just point out Deb Haaland, who is the Secretary of the Interior, just where she came in on this. As important, Mr. Biden is trying to avoid alienating a handful of moderate Republicans and Democrats from oil, gas, and coal states who will decide the fate of his legislative agenda in Congress. Among them is Lisa Murkowski, the Republican senator from Alaska, from whom the Willow Project is a top priority, and who grilled Deb Haaland about it during Ms. Haaland's confirmation hearing for Interior Secretary in February. Ms. Haaland, who opposed the Willow Project as a member of Congress, personally called Ms. Murkowski and other members of Alaska's all-Republican delegation this week to tell them that the Biden administration would support the project in federal court and Anchorage. House and Senate aides confirmed. The decision on the Willow Project was made as the Biden administration is trying to win Republican support for its infrastructure package, blah, blah, blah. And I just want to get this last, I thought it was a really good way to end. Press officers at the White House, the Interior Department, and the Justice Department all declined to comment on how the administration's recent decisions align with its climate pledges. The Interior Department also said it would have no comment on why Ms. Haaland reversed course on the Willow Project after characterizing it as egregious in a letter she signed while serving in Congress.
I haven't read this, but all I'm really getting from this is that we're not going to have any effective change on climate policy or about drilling or any of this, right? It seems like it's it seems like it's a sad kind of nihilistic way to say this, but it seems like another much ado about nothing of like, what are you going to do? Oh, you're going to do nothing? Okay.
In fact, you're going to continue Trump's policies on the environment, which were arguably the worst of any president. And it just
but it's so hard, man. It's just so hard. It's, poor Joe. It's tough. The guy gets up out of bed at 12:30, works for 3.5 hours, has a milkshake. I don't know.
I think Norm said in the interview that he thinks he only works 4 to 5 hours a day.
Yeah, he did. It was like, which I thought was charitable, but yeah, it's probably true, right?
That's all I really had to gripe about this week. You have some gut reactions, right?
Oh yes, I do. I've got some good ones, I think. Let's see, where should I start? We don't need to read it, but we're just going off the headline here. Have a look at that.
News. Oh, wow. Okay. So Greta Thornberg reacts to fat shaming by Chinese state media. The article called her an environmental princess after she said China needed to take responsibility for its emissions. I'm intrigued.
It was basically that they were saying that they don't buy that she's a vegetarian by like the look of her.
Wow. Okay, that's good.
Yeah, I just I love the idea that like one of the most sophisticated like state-run media campaigns, the best thing they could come up with from getting a little bit of criticism is like, she's fat. All right, fatty, whatever. Like,
they don't believe that she's a vegetarian. That's just so good.
I mean, you may have this to say about our effect on climate change, but what do you have to say about how fat you are?
Petty.
Okay, that one's.
I have some, but I think you have many, right?
Yeah, I have many.
Okay.
I don't know if we have a lot to say about that. One more from China.
Great. Oh yeah, I was gonna do this one too. Yeah. John Cena, very sorry for saying Taiwan is a country. Can we watch the video? Have you watched the video of him speaking in Cantonese, or maybe it's in Mandarin?
Mandarin, yeah. Well, that was the thing I was gonna bring up. Was I saw this, and it's like not totally surprising. So like a little context for this is that the new Fast and the Furious movie is opening in China, and apparently the biggest market for the Fast and Furious movies is the Chinese market.
I've heard that, yeah.
Which I guess isn't surprising. They don't have good movies. South Korea's really got Asia on lockdown for making any sort of good content. I don't know the last time I saw a good movie come out of China. But yeah, so John Cena.
We're about to get fat shamed.
Yeah. Oh, we're not listening to Fat Man John Cena. Taiwan's not a country. Yeah, so John Cena was doing like a press conference and referred to Taiwan as a nation, which flies in the face of the Chinese government's official policy on Taiwan, which they do not recognize it as a sovereign nation. And this motherfucker had to apologize for it, which obviously is just like towing the company line stuff of like, you know, his producers or whatever is like, we got to get ahead of this because we can't lose this market, which, you know, I've heard some right-wing commentators like really blowing up about this. And I guess it's a problem. Like, I guess it's not. Yeah, it is bad that we have to like bow down to Chinese policy. On Taiwan just because we need their money. So that it is a real issue, but it's more funny that he issued an apology. And I looked at maybe we could play the video.
Yeah.
Joe, if you could look it up, but we don't need to play it right now. But I was like, I was looking into this and I was like, I gotta see this video. Like, what does this look like? And it's John Cena, and he's like, "Ni hao, 我的名字是 John Cena." I was like, wait a second, does this motherfucker speak Mandarin? And he does.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he in an interview with Stone Cold Steve Austin years ago, according to an article, he said that he had been learning Mandarin to help the WWE break onto the Chinese market. So, I mean, I don't speak Mandarin, but it seems it looks pretty good. Like
we're about to watch it. Man, this
Yeah.
is even better than I thought it was. That's so good.
Yeah, watch this.
你好，中国，就是叫西娜。我必须说，现在，在速度与激情中，我做很多采访，很多，所以在一个采访，我有一个错误，所有人问我，如果我可以用中文，速度与激情中人给我很多资讯 information。所以很多采访，很多 information， 我有一个错误，我必须说现在就是很重要，我爱更尊重中国跟中国人，我很抱歉对我的错误，对不起，我很抱歉，你必须了解，我。很爱、很尊重中国跟中国人，不好意思，再见。
Kind of giving me hostage video vibes, but I really do think that he loves the Chinese people.
First of all, again, I don't speak Mandarin, but I'm really impressed by that. Like that doesn't look like he's reading off of like cue cards or whatever. Apparently, there is not a Mandarin word for information, though.
I feel like he had good rhythm.
Yeah, it was pretty good. I mean, goddamn, it's not an easy, it's not French. It's not an easy language to learn.
Yeah,
but yeah, I thought that's great, and that he's like, I want to apologize to China and the Chinese people. Like, I don't know, but do we think that like Chinese people heard him say Taiwan is a nation and they were like, what? No.
I mean, that's a good question. I know that like Jackie Chan is like huge Chinese. I don't like nationalist is a weird thing to say, but like Chinese patriot. You know how he's pretty sensitive about that stuff. So I don't know. But do you think he said very or sorry more in that video? Like how many?
Ooh, yeah. I think it was pretty equal, but very at least 9 times.
Very sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there you go, bowing down to the Chinese lobby. Let's see. I've got 2 more.
No, I think he really does love the Chinese people, and I don't mean that in like a rude way. I think he really likes China.
Not in a creepy way. Yeah, why not? I mean, I'm sure China. I want to see China. It sounds awesome.
That sounds awesome. Yeah.
Okay. And also, they're making him very rich. So.
Yeah, I'm glad we're talking about this. It's from The Guardian. Kevin Spacey set for return to movies with pedophile drama. I didn't know it was a pedophile drama, but okay.
Yeah, he's here. Maybe I'll just read the first bit of it. Okay, so Kevin Spacey set for return to movies with pedophilia drama. The actor, who has been subject of multiple sexual misconduct allegations, is to play a detective in Franco Nero's film about a man wrongly suspected of child abuse. Oh yeah, so Spacey, 61, will play a police officer investigating the case of a man played by the director, Franco Nero, who can draw people by listening to their voices despite not being able to see, and is wrongly accused of sexually abusing children. I'm very happy Kevin agreed to participate in my film, Nero told ABC News. I consider him a great actor and I can't wait to start the movie. The film will also feature Nero's wife, Vanessa Redgrave, who will play the accused man's piano teacher. So first of all, this movie sounds great.
I love Franco Nero. He was
what else has he made?
He was in Django Unchained. I mean, he's also like, it was a huge star in the 70s. But yeah.
Who was he in Django?
Well, he was the original Django. He played like, you know, the spaghetti westerns. He played Django. But in the movie, he was, let me just make sure. He's Amerigo Vespucci. I don't remember who he is, to be honest with you, but I just know he's in it. But yeah, and he was also the original Django.
Okay. So yeah, there's been a bunch. Apparently, since this article came out, Vanessa Redgrave is not going to be in the movie now. Dropped out of it, and
I was gonna
say, there's been a bunch of uproar about this. Of like they're calling it uncancel culture now, which I find lazy. Yeah, what do you think? Is it time to forgive Kevin Spacey?
I mean, really, the real crime is that he didn't get to play Gorf at all.
That's true. I wanted to see he would have crushed that. I do, you know, I like him as an actor.
Yeah,
I totally believe all the allegations against him because I had for those of you who don't know, he was the artistic director of the Old Vic Theatre in London for quite a while, which is one of the most prestigious South Bank theaters in the London theater scene, and there was a lot of allegations that came out of there. I have heard firsthand accounts from young actors who have been propositioned by Mr. Spacey. So it was very, very common knowledge in London.
Yeah, he's a creep. And I mean, like all the stories that come out about him, like one of the accusers died. I think 2 of the accusers died.
Yeah.
Right? And I mean, natural causes are not a good look, man.
There's all sorts of crazy shit. And we've talked about it on the show, I think, before, but when he did his Let Me Be Frank thing, I mean, that was the conversation about the uncancel thing of like, are we letting him back in? And like, because he was never charged and none of them have been fully substantiated. So he's like, you know, kind of innocent until proven guilty, which again, he's definitely guilty. But there's that thing. But like I said, I think I said this before on the show that had he not done his weird YouTube videos, I don't think any of this would be that big a deal, and he would have been back in the fray a lot sooner.
Yeah, agreed.
But do you think it's going to be a Mel Gibson situation where we're just going to be like, yeah, fuck it, I guess he's back now?
That's a great question. I don't think so. I think it's like you said before, it's like there's just so much baggage with those weird YouTube videos.
Yeah, they're creepy as shit.
Yeah. And I think he's embraced them. I mean, they're still up, you know? Get rid of that.
Oh God. I mean, he's fucking crazy. He's definitely, I mean, I like him as an actor. Don't get me wrong. I genuinely like him. And there's always people who are like, oh, they always try and like say this of, you know, well, it's like that question of like, can you like the art and not the artist and stuff? But people try and be like, Spacey was never good. And it's like, he is good, but he can be a weird pervert and a good actor.
Yeah.
The two often go hand in hand. So
Spacey was never good. It's like the new rallying cry.
So okay. I have one more.
Okay. Man, mine are in comparison this week, but yeah.
Yeah, I have one more. So I don't know if y'all know about this, but the Eurovision Song Contest happened last weekend.
I think I can guess this one, but go ahead.
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know, I never knew. Joe, Dan, did you two know about the Eurovision Song Contest pre Will Ferrell movie?
No, not really.
Yeah, I didn't. I had no idea what it was until some friends over here, like 2 years ago, were like, "You've never heard of this?" And they, showed me all these videos. And Eurovision, yeah, the Eurovision Song Contest is something that was developed. It was like post World War II. I think it was the first one was in like the 60s, but it is a song contest of all of the like European nations, and then there's also like Australia and Israel. By the way, I believe Israel's song this year was a song called "Set Me Free."
Ooh.
Yeah, lacking some self-awareness there, as per usual. Yeah, so the Eurovision Song Contest is every European nation and Australia and Israel will like put forward their best or like their entry, and then it's this giant extravaganza where you have voting from all the nations. So there's like judges voting, and then there's also popular vote. If you haven't seen the Will Ferrell movie, the Will Ferrell movie is quite accurate, I think, to what that world is. And the music is terrible. It's all really, really bad. Or if it is good, like the winners this year were Italy, and their song was like all right. It kind of had like an Arctic Monkeys or like Franz Ferdinand sort of vibe to it, but they were like this rock and roll band. But like the songs that are kind of good are like, yeah, this would have been good if it came out in 2005.
Okay.
So anyway, speaking to Italy, who were the winners, there was a little bit of a controversy. So basically all of the contestants are like sitting out in the, like they all have their own little like booths, and they're all just like housing champagne and stuff while the votes are going on. And there was a bit caught on television where it looks like the lead singer of Italy's band is snorting cocaine off the table. So I wanted to put it, and he has been cleared of it. He took a drug test, which we can get into in a second. But before that, we all know there's ways to fudge drug tests. I certainly have done it before in my life. Yep, Joe's raising his hand as well. I wanted to put it to you, gentlemen. Let's watch this video and let's say, yay or nay, is this man doing cocaine?
So happy to have performed, and I'm so happy that Eurovision happened. It's so happy to have performed, and I'm so happy that Eurovision happened. I'm so happy to have
The video itself is really funny. Let's just watch it real quick.
I'm so happy to have performed, and I'm so happy that Eurovision happened. It's so happy to have performed, and I'm so happy that Eurovision happened. I'm so happy to have performed.
So first of all, like I said, they're like a rock band from like 15 years ago, and they're all like slightly shirtless or whatever, and wearing like weird leather outfits. You know what they kind of remind me of is, you ever see the movie Rockstar with Mark Wahlberg?
Yeah.
They look like that band with like the eyeliner,
yeah,
and that sort of thing. But what do we think, boys? Was that man doing cocaine or no?
I think he was, because the guy next to him even kind of nudges him with his leg. Did you see that? He was kind of like, hey.
It looks like he's simultaneously doing cocaine and then cutting up another line at the same time.
Well, I totally think so. And their excuse was that he said his friend had accidentally broken a glass and he was checking like under the table for this broken glass. And I was like, sure, buddy. I've broken many glasses in my day too, you know? By the way, all these people are this Italian band, they're all like 21.
Thomas break a glass. Yeah, exactly. Thomas break a glass with his leg. I don't use drugs, please, guys.
I don't use drugs, guys, please.
He proceeds to slap the table. And
Yeah, no drugs, no. Like, and yeah, again, look at any of the acts in Eurovision. They better all be on drugs, because there needs to be an excuse for that kind of behavior and the things they wear and everything.
it's just weird, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's funny. It's very funny because it was like, who cares? Like, it's like, what are you, like, taking away the press? It's not the Olympics. Like, it's not performance enhancing.
Yeah.
I mean, it is sort of performance enhancing, but it's not like they won because he was on cocaine and I mean, there was, I assume everybody at the Eurovision Song Contest is on cocaine.
Is it kind of like MTV level
How so?
in respectability?
I mean, it's huge over here. I think like people, it's sort of enjoyed ironically. Like people know that it's dog shit music, or at least in the UK they do. I don't know if they're aware of that. If you like go to like Greece or like Lithuania or something, like they might be watching going, oh my god, man, this is the greatest, but yeah, the Italian song was okay, but again, it was like a rock song from 15 years ago.
This one is not as funny on second. Well, they don't have to be funny, right?
No.
I'm just getting your gut reaction, so I'm gonna send this one to you.
Oof. Bill Cosby's petition for parole denied after he refused sexual predator therapy. That guy's a psychopath.
I know, I read that, I'm like, you really hold on there, right?
Yeah, it was like, you've raped like 60 women and we all know about it, and then you have the gall to be like, I don't know, I don't need help.
You've seen him doing the moves in the orange jumpsuit, right?
No.
I
remember when he was going to court or like at his arraignment or whatever, and he did the Fat Albert hey thing like to the crowd. I was like, who are you? Like, you take, like, could you please take this seriously, Bill Cosby?
Wait.
Yeah. Wow. He's refused sexual predator therapy. Like, what? How could you even give him parole anyway? I guess he's old as fuck, so.
Right. Oh, here we go.
Allegations niggas a bug out.
Molested Andrea Constand in his suburban Philadelphia home.
Oh yeah. Yeah, he does the little like weird like shimmy thing. I forgot about that. That's so fucking weird. Does he do it again?
This is the hey, I guess. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's similar to a Spacey thing of these people just aren't on planet Earth. Like, he's just he's just not taking any of it seriously, and probably thinks, probably believes that he's just above any sort of such criticism.
Yeah. Hold on, I'm gonna send you my final one.
All right, so this one comes from the AP, recently bombed by Israel. Big cheese no more. UK drug dealer caught out by cheese pick. Okay, so a drug dealer in the at Liverpool, great. A drug dealer in the English city of Liverpool thought he was stupid. A drug dealer in the English city of Liverpool thought he was the big cheese, until police got all the evidence they needed to arrest him from a picture he shared of himself holding a small block of creamy Stilton. Nice, by the way. Carl Stewart, 39, was sentenced to 13 years and 6 months in prison at Liverpool Crown Court last week after he pleaded guilty to conspiracy to supply cocaine, conspiracy to supply heroin, MDMA, and ketamine, and transferring criminal property. Were it not for a photo he shared of himself holding the cheese block from the reputable British retailer Marks & Spencer, he could still very well be supplying large amounts of drugs. Stewart was arrested after he posted the photo on the encrypted messaging service EncroChat via his handle Toffee Force. Unbeknownst to him, the service had been cracked by police in Europe. From that, his palm and fingerprints were analyzed and police had their man. Oh, that's crazy.
I think the bigger story is that like, and this has been coming up in the news a lot lately, is that encryption is not so encrypted anymore.
Well, and also they can look at it. I mean, that, I'm looking at the picture. I also like that they had to say, like, they wanted to add in that Marks and Spencer is a reputable grocery store chain. But yeah, it's a picture of his hand holding a mature blue Stilton, which is a delicious cheese, by the way. And I mean, his fingerprints are pretty clear from it, but yeah, that's disturbing.
Yeah, the Stilton is great though, right?
Oh yeah. This is funny. I'm half surprised he's not Italian, because we've seen many stories over the years of Italian like mafia kingpins getting nabbed because they like had to go on a cooking show on YouTube, or like ask their grandmother to bring them cannoli or something. So that's pretty funny. Yeah, that's actually that seemed funny at first, and now that's actually just very disturbing to me.
I know, right? So don't flex the cheese picks.
So to our drug dealing friends out there, EncroChat's no good anymore.
I guess we should get on to the interview.
Yeah.
Again, we are speaking with Clarem Gonzalez about recent events that happened in Colombia that might not feel so recent anymore. If you all remember, I think it was beginning of May, maybe second week in May, there were a lot of protests rocking Colombia over a proposed tax increase to cover the budget shortfalls of COVID-19, which is not great, as we hear, just for the general, and if you were to be someone in the general economy of Colombia, those tax increases were really going to have an effect. And this mixed with some other kind of like socioeconomic issues, as well as just general government negligence, really was the perfect storm for these protests to happen. So we talked to Clarem about that, and I think, like you said, Ben, we talked a lot about lived experience too, and it's a good conversation.
Yeah, and I think it's worth mentioning. This was more in the news several weeks ago, and it has unsurprisingly been eclipsed by the events that are still happening in East Jerusalem, with the actions of the apartheid state Israel against the Palestinian people. But these protests are still happening, and the violent government crackdown is still happening in Colombia. So it is still very relevant.
So yeah, stay tuned. It's a good interview. As always, like, subscribe. Don't send us cheese pics on so-called encrypted chats.
Yeah, don't send cheese pics in general.
Yeah.
I don't want to see your cheese.
Yeah, before we get into this, that reminds me, like, people will like send a photo of the empty plate of food, like after they've eaten it. Like that's what they'll upload on social media.
Yeah, what the fuck is that?
Yeah, who the fuck wants to see that?
Yeah, I don't care.
It's disgusting.
Yeah, it's not an accomplishment.
Yeah.
I ate earlier today.
Yeah. I mean, like, even if you make a great meal, I don't want to see the empty plate.
Yeah, no, that doesn't make any sense. Show the process. Show how you cooked it. I want to learn things. I don't want to see, and also I don't want to see a well-plated salad.
Yeah, neither do I. That's not really.
No, if you are presenting your cooking, it better have taken some amount of technique, and I'd like to see the process for the technique. But like, don't show your well-plated salad. Anyone can make a salad. Salads are not impressive. Anyway, without further ado.
Hi, everyone. This is Going for All Seasons. Today, we are speaking with Clarem Gonzalez. I worked with Clarem in the past. She works in advertising. She's also a citizen of Colombia. So just to introduce myself, my name is Dan.
And I'm Ben. Hello.
So yeah, Clarem is on the line. This really blew up a few weeks ago, but due to scheduling difficulties, we were just getting to Clarem now. Those are on our end, not Clarem's end. But I kind of wanted to just talk about the situation in Colombia and really just get kind of a human approach, someone that I know, and we can talk a little bit more candidly and casually about it. And just to see, I guess, how do you feel about it, Clarem, when you saw all this news starting to pop up?
I mean, it's obviously very hard because I live in the U.S. So I'm, even though like I'm Colombian, I've lived here, and I've lived here for the past decade. And every time there's like a social political climate, you always see like it affects you in your day to day because it affects your family, and in the long run, it will affect me if I ever go back, right? But it's just the fact that like I'm not physically there, so I maybe don't experience like everything to the level as some people, and like you always get the commentary of like, oh, you're not there so you don't know. And I was like, well, my family is still there, so I much well know. And I have a lot of friends that are still there. And at the end of the day, like I am also like, I'm not a US citizen, like I am a Colombian citizen, so like whatever reform or political, like it does affect me at the end of the day because that's where I'm from. So it's hard in the sense that you feel disconnected because it's not affecting you your day to day, but it does affect your family members, and it does affect like your long term like plan of like, when I go back home, this is how things are gonna be.
Certainly. And what are, I mean, the reactions of your friends? Have you seen anything that surprised you? Were you surprised that it happened at all?
A little, just because of COVID. I was actually like, it was very interesting because I was talking to a friend. It's been a year since COVID, really, right? And I went back and I was like, I think we're exactly in the same place that we were a year ago, like with the protests. Like we're still protesting different thing, or like, but last year it was just because of the social injustices and like the violence and the protests and the riots that were happening before COVID. Then COVID hit, and I was like, wow, it's a year later and we're still in the same spot. Probably worse. And I think like my life has changed dramatically in the past year, but I was like, everything else is just like, we're stuck in this like vicious cycle of not progressing, of social injustices, of corruption, of like neglection for like the people and all this stuff. And I was like, what needs to happen for that to change, kind of scenario. So, and it was surprising, to answer your question, just because Colombia is going through the hardest part of COVID right now. Versus I feel like here we're like getting out of it. They're getting in the weeds of it just now with like races and cases. So for people to really like go out and like protest and put the country in complete like standstill, that means like we're kind of like fucked, right? Like for people to actually like put their lives in danger when like the pandemic is on the rise, to go and do a protest, it's significant to like how much they're suffering and how much it's affecting all these people.
I'm gonna let Ben get in with this next question, but I just wanted to ask, can you talk a little bit about the protests that were happening pre-COVID that you mentioned?
Yeah, I think it was, and I have to remember here a little bit, what it was about, because I just remember like crying. Like I remember like I was like, it's so infuriating because like it's all that I see like on social media, and like I couldn't like put into words, and it's like really hard because again, like you are here, like not physically there, so like you don't understand everything that was going on. But it was police brutality, more than essence. And I can't, let me try to pull it up. They just killed like a ton of people. Like I feel bad because I don't remember because it was a year ago. My God, I mean, my post was not about exactly what took place, but my upsetness was like the media was just like covering like the violent protest, like all over the place. Like it was just like about the graffiti and like the riots and like the thing, and they weren't focusing on like the positive riots that were happening, because a lot of them were very peaceful. A lot of them were like in different cities, were like very like music and happy. And I think they were just like really protesting social injustices again, and like the neglection of like the government in it just like a taking apart on like poverty and like the things that are happening there. Sorry, I can't remember.
No, not at all. And Clarem, just to confirm,
This is November 2019, not even like it was 2 years ago.
I mean, yeah, it feels like a century has passed since given news. One thing I want to say is it sounds like a lot of this current unrest really does tie into the poverty in Colombia, but specifically in regards to a tax hike that Duque proposed.
Yeah.
I could be wrong about that.
No, it is. This is how like the current situation and how it started is it's a culmination and it's the addition of many, many different things. But this one in particular that started a couple weeks ago started off because the government proposed a new tax reform. Mm-hmm. And basically Colombia got so in debt because of COVID. We borrowed so much money and now we're like, oh crap, how are we gonna pay this back? Mm-hmm. And bad government management there on their behalf. I was like, please don't borrow money that we don't have to pay back. Mm-hmm. And I think what pissed people off mostly is that they try to cover it and they called it like sustainable reform. So it was like trying not to call it like a tax, but at the end of the day, if you look at it, 110 pages. So this was just basically a tax reform. And Colombia has had about 50 in the past 20 years, which is a lot. Our taxes are already super high. We pay 19% on like products. And one of the things, like the major ones in the tax reform that people were like, this is insane. It was like, they were gonna tax you on funerary expenses, which is like, okay, great. You have to pay even after you're dead taxes. The other one was public services. So like electricity, gas, water, like we will have to pay tax on top of that. And I think the other major was like adding taxes to consumer basic products, so it's like your groceries, like even more. And I was like, well, this is stuff that people literally need to live. Like there's no way they can like go around with not buying food or like not paying for public services and raising the taxes. So every time there's like a tax increase, it affects the middle and the poorer classes the most because that's the working class and that's where, and the minimum salary in Colombia is about $300. So, and this is the salary that most people are making in the country. There is anomalies and there's people that make more, but I feel like that the majority, that's not a lot of money for you to pay rent, food, and then on top of that you're taxing me way higher that there's nothing going to be left. To that you have to add that because we're in the middle of the pandemic, there's a ton of people not working. There's a ton, it's like, how are you going to tell me that like I have to pay more for my basic needs, especially now that I have either less of an income that's already kind of shit because it's nothing or not at all. So that's why like the people were like, no, like you can't, absolutely, we're not gonna like let this thing go through because it will just not allow us to live. Like there's no way we can make ends meet with like that salary and those taxes being so high. So that's where the first protest, which in Colombia called it paro, when it's just like go a complete standstill, nobody goes to work, nobody does anything, and it's like we are in standstill protesting for this thing. Then I think what added to the situation was the government and their president's reaction. So he wasn't somebody that opened the table for negotiation like right away. He just kind of like sat quiet and let shit happen and like didn't respond or would send somebody else to like respond to the situation. And it was very like, oh, this has to be this way, guys. Like, I'm sorry. but it wasn't like an open table discussion. And I feel like that's another thing that people have criticized of the president a lot, is like he is not actively part of the conversation, and he's not actively seeing the things that we're seeing. And like, what the fuck, bro? Like, you're supposed to be that person that like abides to, and his response to things is always like not like, it seems like he does it a little bit too late after the matter. Like, another thing that has been very criticized is this tax reform technically has to happen. How else are we gonna freaking pay for the debt? Right? Like there's no way. It has to happen. It's just certain things had to be negotiated and certain things had to be like adjusted for them. And I feel like that he just never sat on the table and opened it for dialogue. He was like, oh my God, the people are rioting. I'm gonna take it completely off. So that's another thing. I was like, well, what are we gonna do about the debt now? And we don't really have a solution, and like they're talking about it. But I think that is a combination of things to start off. And then there is the second portion of it, that is our indigenous leaders felt that this government in particular has neglected them like a ton. And this is what's happening like in the South, where I feel like the riots are a little bit bigger, and not to say it might get a little bit more violent in Cali. So most of the indigenous people in Colombia reside in that area, and what's happening there, like they're calling themselves Minga, which is the Quechua word for like social unity and injustice, so representatives. So if you ever hear in the news like, oh, the Minga in Colombia, the Minga in Colombia, they're just talking about the indigenous social groups. So they have felt very, very neglected by the government, and they have sent letters, they've sent the leaders, they like want to talk and converse. And the president was kind of like just like MIA, again, sending other people, not him. So the Minga got pissed off, and I was like, we want to talk to you, we like want to be heard, we want to coordinate. So what they did is just like they went into protests in those cities, but they completely closed like the roads. So like nothing comes in, nothing comes out. So that's obviously affecting the economy of those cities. Cali is a big port city and importation and stuff. And like that has blocked and hasn't allowed people that actually live in the cities to go, like even like go to a hospital and get like treatment. So the city, they like stand still, the city, and it has gotten like violent in some occasions just because they're just trying to open to dialogue. Finally, he did go down there and we saw, but it's like, what took you so long? Like, why did it have to get to this point? Again, the critic criticizing the president for you to be responsive in the way they should have responded in the first place. Like this could have all like be avoided if he would have like gone meet with them when they asked them to. And instead of like, it had to turn into a thing, and here we are.
That was a great answer.
Yeah.
Ben, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, I was just looking at some numbers of this, and like kind of circling back to you were talking about, you know, how much like everywhere else in the world that COVID has really just ravaged populations, not with just our health, but also with, you know, financially. And what I found here is that it is estimated, this is from, I'm reading from Al Jazeera, but it is estimated that 3.5 million people have fallen into poverty due to COVID-19 pandemic, bringing the number of those living in poverty from 17.5 million in 2019 to 21 million, which is 42.5% of the population. It was just really staggering. I think that, first of all, I just think it reminds me of what happened in the United States last year with the George Floyd protests, that I feel like a lot of that came also from just people weren't working and people were fed up. And I wonder if you could I wonder if you could break down for us just kind of what the class makeup landscape of Colombia is, like as we see it from that, like much of the population is living in poverty, like you said, but what does that look like the size of the middle class, the size of the working class, and of course the upper class, and maybe where does Ivan Duque sit in there?
Yeah, so Colombia is a classist country. We work and like we like around the classes, and we actually number our like label our classes. So you have class 1 to 7, and you actually get charged like by the neighborhood you lived in, your like public services, depending on the class that you're in. So like if you're class 1 and 2, your services are a little bit cheaper than somebody that's like class 7. But like obviously you can see that in like the neighborhoods too. When you go in a neighborhood that's class 7 versus you go to a neighborhood that is class 1 and 2. Class 1 and 2 might not have paved streets. Class 1 and 2 definitely doesn't have like pumping water. They probably still have like well water. But you still get charged for the service. So very classist, and that's how we like live and abide, and like your bubble remain like kind of like stays your class. I think I want to say it exists, and like you're gonna see it and you can sit, but like once you are in your world bubble, and I say that because I'm middle class personally, my family is, but my parents very humble and like weren't middle class growing up. They like were one of the few people that were able to make the jump into middle class, and we like live well. So like in my bubble, if I surround myself with like my friends and everybody, like nobody really falls under the category of poor.
Right.
And there is this saying for us, don't let privilege cloud you. And I think that happens to a lot of us in Colombia because our privilege doesn't let us see the level of poverty that's like happening. And like in any other country, like those level of poverty are not like in the city, like they become part of like the outskirts. So if you're not someone that's like in the outskirts, you're never gonna see it, but it's like there. And I also, like if I think of the amount of people, and I was like, my first thought is so many people in Colombia make ends meet by working on the streets, right? So it's like the little seller that's selling you like the gum, the bottle of water, like little food trucks around like the city, like the streets are very, very active. And I'm like, wow, how are these people eating? I was like, if they can't like go out, do and cook and like or sell, like how are these people? And I was like, they're not. And it was like that, and like most people don't work. And I've had actually this argument with like friends that are a little bit clouded by their judgment, because I was there, we were discussing one day about my friend was trying to hire someone to be a sales in their company. And I was just like, oh yeah, like they the minimum salary, like somebody, and they were like, oh my God, like I'm not gonna offer a minimum salary because nobody can live off of that. And I was like, but that's the minimum salary, and most people do have to live off of that. Like he was just in denial that I was like, nobody like can live off of that. And I was like, but they do. And like people actually work for that amount of money. And I also like think of different situations, like my sister graduated psychologist. She's been making the same salary for like 10 years. Like no increase, no anything. Like I was making more money like tutoring in college like a month that she like fully graduated career. And the last time I was there, I also remember like getting on an Uber and talking to an Uber driver. It's like, listen, I have a degree in this and it pays me more to drive a cab than to actually like pursue my career and like my degree because the minimum salary is so shit. And I was like, most people live off of that just because they have to, and that's like what the market like offers them. And that's just like the sad reality that people are being underpaid and underappreciated, and how they make ends meet is with the side hustle. And when you take that side hustle out, they like don't really have nothing. And I can't imagine all these like street sellers and like the people, Peach, sorry, the people, how they're making ends meet to like pay rent or pay food.
I suppose that's a big issue with these tax reforms, or like, you know, that like part of the thing I guess they're selling on it is that people will get tax refunds, but if so much of the population is sort of in an informal employment sector, these tax refunds wouldn't do anything for them anyway, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I, to be honest, I hear that like the government here, you like, oh, it's super like organized, you get a refund. Like that shit doesn't work that way there. Like if you pay something, you're not getting shit back. Like it's not, they're gonna find some like loop of paperwork that you didn't file correctly, or you're gonna fight for it for like 3, 4, 6 years and like never see the light of day. It's just like money out is money that it's never gonna come back into your pocket.
One thing I wanted to bring up, Clarem, is we talked about Duque a little bit. Can you give us your general impression of him?
I was never a fan. I did not vote for him. So for me, it's like, he was like, see people, see, he was a douchebag. Like people was like, oh my God. Like I obviously saw it definitely in my social media, like the people that were like pro Duque back in the day and like everybody that wasn't. And I was like, who are these fucking dumbasses that are voting for him? And he won by a fucking landslide. Yeah. And I'm like, oh my God, we must be idiots. We must be idiots. He comes very educated guy. Not gonna lie. And people was like, yeah, he's very educated. He knows English, like all these things. He studied abroad. He's gonna come. And I was like, that doesn't mean nothing. Like,
yeah, never trust those guys. So it's not a good thing.
Yeah, like, especially I was like, because he is privileged, he doesn't understand a lot of other things. And he also came as a puppet, for the lack of a better word, of the previous Uribe government. So everybody knew there was a relation there. Everybody knew there was backup, there was support, there was things. And Uribe's presidency is very, very, what's the word for it? Controversial, right? He did many, many good things for the country. Like, I'm not gonna take that away from him, but he also controlled the negative parts of the country and like the guerrillas and like the drugs and all the stuff. So it was like, yes, he provided a lot of safety per se, but it's because he was controlling the bad guys. So I was like, it's controversial. But in my family, my household is liberal. My dad's very liberal. So we were never pro Uribe. We were never Duque. So like in that sense, I'm like very biased. What my friends and other people say perception, I feel like those who even are like pro Uribe and like pro Duque are now like, what the fuck, bro? You're an idiot. It's just somebody not taking action. Somebody like doesn't know what he's doing. Like he's not a leader of the people. And he's not able to. And I feel like it's very frustrating because a lot of these things are happening and it's like bad leadership. And I was like, yes, in his defense, some of these things are out of his control and it's just not him, it's Congress, the Senate. But the lack of empathy, I think, is what's been criticized the most. The lack of his involvement and be like, I hear you guys, I understand your pain, I understand the struggle, let's do this together. Like, we're not getting that from him. And like everybody is just like, thing. But at this point, is it worth getting him replaced? Probably not. like we're gonna have to live until like the end of his like term. But like it's too late now. I think it's like similar to the US. By the time like Trump, like why are we impeaching him like 2 months before? It was like kind of late. So I think that has been like he has. I might be wrong, but I think he's probably the most unpopular president that we've had. And even like for like the people that voted for him to be like, oh my God, this guy is a joke. They call him a pig. Like there's just like he's just not a political piece. I've actually had never heard of him ever until his like candidacy. I don't know like his political career. Like I don't think he was that involved in Colombian like affairs before he became president.
Sort of a similar to Juan Guaido in Venezuela kind of character. Like no one really knows why the fuck he's in his place of power. Yeah.
Place of power, he is connected to the right people, like everything in Colombia. Like you know the right people and you're connected and you get the hookup, you'll get the job.
Yep.
So that's kind of.
Is there I mean, because I don't know a ton about Colombian politics. I know very little, but like I know that like some stuff like the Bolivarian movement never really hit Colombia. Is there any sort of presence of left-wing populism that exists in Colombia? Like, is there any appetite for that?
There is. I don't think it's to the level of Bolivarian. Like Petro, for example, I feel like he's unpopular is because people think he like tends to be very left-wing socialist.
Wait,
Petro.
Petro?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So, which now he's like on fire for so many other things, but like I would say he leans towards that side. It's not as prominent. It's not like, oh my God, Venezuelan level like Bolivarian left wing, but he steers more left wing. And if we go back to the history of Colombia, and I think most kind of democracy, we've been like very liberal, conservative, kind of very 50-50. In the past, like 20 or so years, I feel like little other political parties have arisen and come out. Like now we have like the Green Party, and also we have the Uribe Party, which back in the day didn't exist. So like we have little that kind of don't lean one way or the other, and kind of there like mixing it up. So we don't have that strong distinction anymore between like red and blue, which we used to have and fight over. Because yeah, back in the day, every 4 years, there was a period in time in Colombia that it was like every 4 years, the candidate had to be of the opposite party. So like 4 years we will be red, 4 years will be blue, 4 years will be red, 4 years. So until we realized that, oh wow, we can't progress that way because there's like every 4 years the agenda completely changed. Mm-hmm. And now it's just like free for all. But it was like that for a while.
I wanted to bring up, well, hold on, I want to make sure they didn't have to change parties, right? It's just the way people voted every 4 years.
No, it like had to.
Oh, that's so weird.
Yeah, this is back in the day. But yeah, it had to because that was like the way that they like avoided the civil war. Like a civil wars was like that way. I was like, okay, we'll make you happy. Every 50-50 of the time. And like even this is like hundreds of years ago. But also like the capital, there was like a huge fight because liberals wanted the capital to be like in Barranquilla, where I'm from, and not in the middle in Bogota because whatever. And for that period of time, they also like changed the capital a couple of times because depending on who was like governing, like they would make these changes until they finally just cut it quits and everything's in Bogota now because it's in the middle. But yeah, it's just been our government. It's funny.
I wanted to bring this up because you mentioned that you come from like a pretty liberal household, and I know this has kind of been a huge part of Colombian history that I know about is the impact of Farc and how maybe you personally feel about it, maybe how your family feels about it, and just maybe the general consensus about Farc at the moment.
Yeah, so I mean, I grew up in the 90s in Colombia, so that was like prominent like guerrilla like time. We weren't when I was younger, like we weren't allowed to like travel like between cities. It was just not a thing. It was just not safe. Like at any moment in time, like you could get like kidnapped or like stopped and like stripped from all your belongings, like in the car. So when I was younger, like all like jewelry, like my parents like made us take off the jewelry when we were like traveling and like be as low key as possible, just to avoid. My dad worked for a very prominent company in Colombia, so I had a little bit of a different growing up situation than most people. So the private company that my dad worked for, we had like a little, imagine like a military camp based city in the middle of nowhere in Colombia. So I grew up there, so very distance from like the city and like the things that were happening. But like our train, like we have a train that would take it was a coal mine, so like that would take that coal out into like the port, got like blow up twice, like when I was younger. So it was like we weren't affected by it because I lived in a very secure area, but like the country did. And it was definitely very different when I was like in my hometown versus when I was like in the city. And my parents were like, no gold jewelry, take it all off, like be low key. My friend's parents got kidnapped. A couple of them had been. So like also experienced that. It was just not safe to like be out and about like we are now. And I think that that has improved. I wouldn't say it's completely like gone. The peace treaty that we signed when Santos was president like 4 years ago, that helped resolve a lot of those issues, and like they like withdrew themselves from the area and like are not claiming being like a group anymore, which was great for our history and great advancements for that. The rumors that are happening right now with the Farc and the guerrilla was, for example, with the Minga stuff, there was some rumors, I don't know if this is actually true, is actually happening, that the Farc was just like, if the people need guns, we're gonna supply them. So they have dissembled as an organization on paper, and they do have like their own political party now too. So like they're in the mix of like they're able to run for government positions and all that stuff. And but that's just a rumor. I don't know how 100% it is. But from the 90s to where it was that we had like 3 different guerrilla groups. It was like the Farc, what was the other one? And the ELN.
That's the Marxist National Liberation Army.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And is definitely not like, it has improved and it's not what it used to. I think now like the discussions like happen at the political table versus like them being armed in the ground, but I'm sure they still have access to all these things. Like how quickly can you like dismantle that?
Right. And I guess I'm curious about, was there any kind of like popular support for the Farc in Colombia? Because it sounds like they were, and I don't know anything about them aside from just being like a Marxist organization. Like if they really had any support aside from that, just
I think they, from where it initially started and how it initially began, I feel that they changed as a team and they started affecting the Colombian public so much, and the citizens were being like calamity into like their visions and how they do things, that they became unpopular. I don't personally have never heard somebody be in support of any of those groups. It's always to an understanding. I feel like everybody is like, we understand where you're coming from because we feel the same way. It's just like the way that you're doing it. But like at the beginning, of course, yes, like they became that. They were just group of people, like one was a military that they got fed up with like how the military was being used and then they created their own. And the other one was just like people like being fed up with the situations that they decided to take matters into their hands and like protect their people and their land and like their ideals with guns. And but it evolved. Like the fact that they were like kidnapping kids to like join and force them to like be part of this army, I feel like that just like evolved into something that like I don't think anybody could support.
Absolutely. Ben, I want to let you jump in. You had some questions.
Give me a second. Sorry, I'm looking at something. But you can go, or you can go ahead if you got something.
Something that I've noticed in recent years is a lot of my friends have started to visit Colombia more often, and this is just something that like I personally think about a lot. Is like when you go to these places and you just don't really understand exactly what's going on. And especially like if you're an American tourist, like you probably have the currency to make that happen pretty easily. Can you talk about maybe perception of the U.S. in Colombia?
I think I like get like mixed reviews like all the time because I was like watching this show yesterday and I was like, it made me laugh because he was Puerto Rican, but he was like born in the US, was saying in the show that like, oh, in Colombia, there's only prostitutes and drugs. And I was like, Jesus, like, and this was recent, like the 2000s. And I'm like, wow, we still have that perception. Like Colombia is way more than that. Yeah. Colombia is a beautiful freaking country. And like, it has so much to offer, like the people, the food, everything's so great. It's also cheap as hell if you were getting paid in US dollars. This is the conversion rate. And I encourage people to like, if they talk to me, to like go and like visit, and I'll tell you, but like in any city in the world, like please don't go in a dark alley at 3 a.m. Like that's just like basic. Like I'm not gonna even like do that in New York City, right? Mm-hmm. It's just, you gotta be street smart to a degree. I don't think it's unsafe to go. Obviously right now with like COVID and the political climate, I wouldn't encourage it. I was like, wait a year. But I mean, to me, it's surprising that people still have that notion that we're just like a drug country, or like how we sometimes get depicted on like TV. Mm-hmm. But I remember this one particular movie,
Scarface.
No, but with like Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie, that they're like spies or whatever. And
Mr. and Mrs. Smith.
I like
that. Mr. and Mrs. Smith, at the beginning of that, they're in Bogota and it's a desert. And I'm like, Bogota's cool as fuck. Like it's mountains. Like you're not gonna find that topography in Colombia, like in that area. You will in other regions, but not there. And I was like, wow, this is what people have it so wrong. And stuff like that, that I'm like, people like don't know that Colombia, for example, has every single like climate in the country. So like we go from deserts all the way to like ice, mountain, like, and it fluctuates. We have valleys, we have savannas, we have so much diversity. And he was like, it's Colombia's like hot. And I was like, no, you can go to places where you need a jacket and a sweater because it's so cold. Yeah. And it's just mind blowing. And I was like, yes, there's like a ton art too. I think from the South American countries, we're like the most innovative and like more like creative. So there's like a ton of fairs and a ton of talent that is also happening there. Netflix just got to Colombia, which is exciting. They now have offices there. So I mean, there's growth, there's innovation, there's progress. I would definitely highlight the people. I feel like when people come back, they're just like, I just feel like loved when you go there, like welcomed, and like people actually like enjoy talking to you. And culture-wise, like it's great. Perceptions now with the political climate, I feel like people are just like concerned. into like what's happening and like the why. And also I think social media has allowed a lot of like this information to be shared with the world that I feel like it wasn't like before, or like people really didn't understand like why. They're like, oh, something's happening, but they don't really understand. So like now, like with the platforms, I feel like people are getting to know a little bit more about the situation in there and like why are people sad. But like I think, and I actually do have a couple people who are traveling for like a wedding next week, and I was like, you get both things, like you can go and not see any of that, right? Because it's not happening 24/7 and it's not happening like everywhere. And like you might run into a protest like here and there. Like my friend was traveling inside of Colombia the other day. I was like, I left to the airport like 3 hours early because I didn't want to run into a protest and like miss my flight. Because like they're sporadic and like you don't know. But again, like you could do it both ways right now. It's like you could go to Colombia and like not see any of this if you really, really wanted to, just like strategically going to certain places. The coast definitely is not as bad as the interior. So like if you go to like one of the islands or you go to the beaches, you might go in and out and never see any of the political situations that are happening.
I feel like a lot of people go to Cartagena. Is the big one? Yeah.
Tourist trap, but yes.
This is advice. Since we've mentioned stereotypes, I do want to just ask this. Cocaine, I mean, is it like easier to get there? Like I'm curious.
We're planning a trip and we want to know if
I think it's really funny. My personal experience, and I don't know, like everybody's is different, but I have seen more drugs. I saw drugs for the first time in the US, not even back home. Mm-hmm. Like, I've actually never seen cocaine back home.
It's all getting exported to the US and Europe.
Yeah, I think so, right?
I mean, maybe we just don't. One of the things that I found, there's two things that I've learned about drugs is like back home, the use of drugs were just very frowned upon, or at least like in my household and like how I grew up, and it's like very frowned upon. If you did drugs, you did not want people to know. So that I feel like that is one of the main reasons why maybe I wasn't exposed to it, because it was like something that was very, very frowned upon. Versus here, I feel like people celebrate the use of drugs and they're like, look at me doing all the drugs and look at me, I'm so cool. But I saw it way more in college here than I ever did growing up there. Yes, of course I knew about it, and like that was just like a thing that like people, like certain type of people did, and they were like off the rails, and like you didn't associate yourself with those people. Versus here, it's like, oh my god, my grandmother does drugs, and like you're like this guy. So funny enough, yes, like I have never seen it there. I haven't been home in 2 years because of COVID, so I haven't tried to get cocaine there either. So I can't respond to that, but I can't imagine it not being like super hard if you were into it, but not to the level of Mexico. Like I remember like in Mexico, and this is an exaggeration, but I got off the plane and people were just like, drugs? And I was like, what is this? I'm like, when I got to Cancun, literally wherever you walk, there will be like some dude offering you some type of drug. Like I walk around Colombia and that doesn't happen. Like, but if you're trying to find it, I'm sure you'll find it.
Okay. All right. So Dan, we'll take our trip to Mexico then. Yeah. All right. That sounds good.
Ben, you had some more questions?
Not much, I suppose. I just wonder if you have any opinion about just going back to Duque. Like, I know he's much more on the right, and I know that he's gotten some support from other right-wing leaders in South America, like Piñera in Chile, and then Bolsonaro in Brazil, obviously. And I don't know, I was wondering if you have any like opinion on kind of where South America is going in like on the whole, or if or just where Colombia sort of sits in that, because it sort of seems like Colombia has been an outlier over the past several decades, going back to the Bolivar movement and stuff. But do you think it's like the whole continent sort of going right wing?
I don't think Colombia would allow that to happen, to be honest. Like we have Venezuela as an example, and I feel like this is a common thing that people is like, that's not going to happen to us. So I think any candidate that slightly skews that like way, people are just going to shut it down. Just because of that fear of having something like what's happening in Venezuela and in another, I can't remember what's the other country that they also have a little bit of a.
Would be in Bolivia, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bolivia. They were like, like we're already like this messed up. Like this is not gonna save us, and not to like bitch on my people, but like we're not like, I love like Colombia and I love the culture there, like don't get me wrong, but I don't think like we love to share. Like it's a lot of like that game of like every man fends from themselves, and if you have the opportunity to like let's screw the other one, I feel like that's like the mentality that like we live by. And again, not everybody, but I think like the majority, that's how we've been trained, is because that like you constantly have to hustle to make it. Like because everybody is always trying to screw you one way or another kind of like thing. So like I don't think there will be a scenario where people will be content that like whatever I make I'm gonna share with other people and like that don't deserve it per se. So I think that's like a tough sell. So I don't think like we would go that route. I mean, I don't think that's wrong personally. We might need a little bit of that to just like help balance the inequalities for a little bit. I just like I'm not into that much of the weeds of the politics of like what would it take. And I actually like asked a couple of friends that are into politics, is like, if you could do anything right now to fix the country, what would you do? And like their responses is like, I wouldn't know where to start. So one day, maybe, and it's just like finding the right people in like these positions and make the decisions. I think it's like the hard, and I think that's when our generation comes in. That are more interested in like actually like saving and working for the people than working for themselves.
I think that is a good note to start our close on. One thing I wanted to just ask real quick is, I feel like I know a lot of Colombians that have been, and I don't know if that's just because they come to New York or just kind of a testament to the ability for like Colombians to be able to come to the United States. Do you, as, I don't want to say like an expat, but like someone who has come to the United States, like, do you think you'd want to move back? And most of your friends that you talk to who are in the United States, do you think there is a strong connection that they want to move back eventually? Or what is that perception like?
I mean, I was one of those people that I was like, I wanted to move back this year. I was like, oh, I've been a decade in the United States. Like I made my career. I know what this is about. I can always like come back but I want to go home. Like I miss being home. I miss my family. I miss the food. I miss the culture. And it's like, I've also felt like I've disconnected from a lot of that being here. Like I speak more English than I do Spanish now. And it's kind of sad. But it's just, my job is in English and most of my friends don't speak Spanish and all these things. And I feel like I've disconnected and I've changed as a human being, like a ton, like my values, which is something I never thought I was going to change. And then I started becoming like more, I want to say, cold-hearted to like things that I used to care about. Like, one of the things that got me when I first moved to the US was how much people like disposed of things like very quickly and then try to like fix them or give them because it was like easier. And I was like, I would never be that type of person because like I see people struggling and all the time for like a piece of bread, and here are people throwing 20 breads out just because and somebody touched it, right? And I was like, I would always take my food from like the restaurant. If I wasn't gonna eat it, I'll give it to a homeless person. And slowly all that stuff has gone away. Like I was like, it's just easier to like, I just moved and I threw out so much shit because it was just easier to throw it out than like to like try to keep it or move it, or it's like, I can just buy it again because I've embraced the consumerism and that like first world living that I was like, oh my God. And I was like, what's wrong with you? I was like, you need to go back home. You need to go back home and like root back yourself into like being this humble human being and not just like this entity that's just consuming and like doing, right? And whenever I would tell my friends back home that I was trying to do that, they were like, no, like why? Like if things are so shit here, you're gonna have such a hard time finding a job, you're not gonna get paid as much. And I was like, I know I'm gonna probably get paid a lot less, but like enough to like what my living there is and to accommodate. And now like the COVID hits and political climate, I was like, I can't go home. Like super bad scenario to we're like in a complete lockdown, and then to like the job level there is like with everything being closed and like the markets being closed, and I'm one of the lucky few that yes, I work in advertising and then I can work from home, and then probably would be able to find something similar there, but it's like how hard is it gonna be? And I have friends that graduated college like a couple of years ago and they haven't found jobs in their career, and they're doing other stuff, or they're still like went back to school, study some more just because they couldn't find jobs. I was like, when I put myself in that situation where I'm doing so well here, like, and I have everything that I need. So now it has changed. It was like, I really want to go home, but like I can't go home because this is what makes more sense for me, is to have the stable life that I have here versus what I could not have there. Like how long it will take me to like get a job there. It might be years. I'm just like sitting around like trying to figure out, or just start your own business or entrepreneurship. But right now with COVID and the political climate, it's like impossible. I was like, scratch that idea off your head. We're not going back home until at least like things like clear up a little bit.
When they do clear up and Ben and I start to make our vacation, what are your suggestions? Where should we go that are not tourist traps?
It depends on what you like to do. That's my always question. It's like, what do you want to do when you're there? Is it the food? Is it the museums? Is it the culture? Is it like the nature? Because
I think we talked about it earlier.
Cocaine. No.
Wherever we could get the best of all those things, somehow.
Yeah, I mean, there's just so many things, but I think
food
like,
for me. I want food.
I think food and culture would be the top.
Yeah.
I think definitely like the most international is the capital, which is say Bogota. So you can find a little bit of everything there. Everybody migrates in and out of the city. So it's a little bit melting pot between cultures. So food wise there, I feel like it's the most international. And the city is pretty in itself. But then we have Medellin, which I would say it's the artsy city. It's a valley. It's where a lot of the music, the urban music, the reggaeton comes out of there, but also like the fashion and art innovation. This is like the primary city, and it's gorgeous. So that's like my reco, and the weather is great. They also have a ton of like around Medellin and also Bogota, the surrounding areas, if you're interested in more like naturey landscapes, scenarios. There's a ton of little pueblitos, which is like small towns, I guess, that like are like stuck in time a little bit, and like they're cute and they're remnants of a lot of like our roots and the culture, especially the indigenous ones. It's like very there. One of a very good recommendation if you like coffee is to do one of like the coffee tours. So in Colombia, there's this territory that's called El Eje Cafetero. It's like the eye of the coffee, and it's composed by 3 states, and all those 3 states are massive coffee production. Going through those farms and doing like that tour of like the coffee thing is amazing. So that is another must have. And I'm from the coast, so if you like the beach, I recommend going to El Parque Tayrona in Santa Marta. So that Tayrona is the second, I believe, largest mountain to be by the water. So you have like giant mountains, so you go from ice all the way to beach, and like you can climb that, hike and sleep in tents. They also have like cute little glamping scenarios if you want to do that, but you can camp there and like you can go all the way. So there's an indigenous reservoir at the top, and you can like go and check it out. And this indigenous people in particular have a very cool story that they do a trip once in a lifetime to all the way down to see the beach for the first time. So like they at least do it once in their life to like come down from their like little reservoir all the way down to see the ocean. So you'll see those people. They're super sweet. And yeah, you're basically in a jungle by the beach, and then like you go see mountains and hike. So it's super fun.
Those are great recommendations. I just want to end. I don't know if this is going to work out or not, but Clarem, is there like a saying or a joke in Colombia that you like that you could tell us?
I mean, you got me off guard. I have to like think about it. There's so many, but like as a sign off.
It doesn't have to be a sign off, but it could be fun if it was.
Wow.
Yeah, how do Colombians say goodbye?
Ciao.
Do they say ciao?
Sí.
Oh, yeah.
Ciao, adios. Hasta mañana. Like.
Okay, so no fun or no strange sayings.
No, I mean, there's like, yeah, not to say goodbye. I mean, there's a ton of like sayings and like that are ridiculous, and
anyone that you like.
There's one that I always translate, and it always sounds funny. I don't know.
That's all right. We can edit.
Totally fun.
Yeah, you had to prep me. I would have like given it a thought. There's just so many.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think of just one. It's like you only need one, Claire. Come on, you can do this. No, I mean, I'm thinking, but it's just like words of like my slang of things that I say when I speak Spanish, and
or American sayings that make you laugh that are because they're ridiculous or something.
American sayings. God, this is hard. Why is this so hard? Give me one, and then I'll trigger.
I think New York slang is pretty funny. Like, I mean, obviously.
So brick. Oh my God, that one just throws me off. It's like, it's so brick.
Yeah. Brick is classic, I think. I think dead ass and on God are overused, but like, I think you good is probably like a really funny one because people are like, you good? Like, and it can just mean so many funny things. Like, are you like encroaching on me in a wrong way? Are you okay? Are you having a nice day? I think that's a funny one.
I mean, this one just sounds funny to me in Spanish. Es como, al que le caiga el guante, que se lo achante. Which is like if the gloves fit. If the glove fits, like, you know, when you like say something that I say a lot. Wow, I just can't remember the exact phrasing. But this one is whenever people like generalize something, there is a saying. I can't remember exactly the words of it. But it's more of the wow, I can't remember. But that's the one I use the most, I would say. When people generalize something, I was like, whoa, that's like 3 is a crowd, bro. Like, don't count me in that. But it is a funny way of saying it.
Yeah.
I can't remember what it is, but I'll text you when I remember or when I next say it, because I do say it often.
We'll do a follow-up.
Yeah. Oh, just about slang.
Yeah, that'll be part 2.
Clarem, thank you so much for spending your Sunday with us. It was really good to see you too. So I'll make sure to send you a link as soon as we post. But yeah, thank you.
No, thank you guys for having me, and
thank
we're
you.
happy.
Definitely.